Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. I always cherished my peaceful life on the outskirts of the bustling city. Nestled in a tight-knit community, my neighbors were kind and supportive, with one exception. The military wife who lived nearby, though her husband was rarely home, proved to be a constant source of trouble. Despite her husband's friendly demeanor, his wife carried an air of entitlement and arrogance, as if she held authority over all of us. She imposed her opinions on others, often barging into people's homes, showering them with unwanted compliments about their possessions, and demanding they fulfill her wishes. She was the epitome of a Karen, overbearing and bothersome. Strangely, she seemed exempt from adhering to the same standards as the rest of us, playing loud music, hosting rowdy parties, and carrying on without regard for the peace of the neighborhood. My own encounter with her occurred several weeks ago. In an aggressive manner, she knocked on my door, demanding to know the secret behind my lush green lawn. "Your yard looks better than mine, and that's disrespectful. My husband risks his life for people like you, and you repay us like this?" she spat angrily. Confused by her outburst, I calmly explained that regular mowing was the secret behind my well-maintained lawn. Yet her anger persisted, and she warned me that I would regret my actions. Her vengeance began with throwing garbage into my yard, and in retaliation I returned the favor. Our petty disputes escalated when she poured a chemical liquid onto my lawn, resulting in its ruin. Though I witnessed her silhouette that night, it was insufficient evidence to prove her guilt. Frustrated by the constant harassment, I decided to install security cameras, ensuring that I had irrefutable evidence of any further wrongdoing. Sadly, she extended her misdeeds to other neighbors, with no legal recourse to stop her. We endured her tirades, seeking solace in occasional acts of revenge. Despite confronting her husband once, who apologized on her behalf, we realized that mere apologies would not rid us of her presence. The only instance when she faced legal consequences was when she vandalized a neighbor's car, claiming its cheapness diminished her own standing. However, her influence continued unabated. Her Saturday parties, consisting of her wealthy friends, reverberated throughout the neighborhood. Laughter and loud conversations carried from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., drowning out all attempts to reason with her. On one occasion, she even attempted to assault me when I confronted her about the noise. An equally exasperating presence was her son, who, despite being college-educated, mirrored his mother's irritating behavior. He would play football in the middle of the street, defying requests to move, and resorting to calling for his mother's intervention. A graduation party was held in their yard, where the unruly antics of his friends spilled over onto the streets, encroaching on our properties. Reluctantly, we endured this disruption, fearing the consequences of spoiling the festivities for the young man. However, fate took a dramatic turn the morning after the graduation celebration. To my surprise, Karen appeared at my doorstep, propositioning to purchase my property for her son. "What?" I asked, perplexed by her audacity. "My son deserves a nice place to live. He adores your house and yard, and I want to buy it for him," she declared. Rejecting her proposal, I firmly stated that I had no intention of selling. Her response was chilling, as she threatened to seize my property forcefully if I didn't comply. Defiantly, I closed the door, refusing to yield to her demands. I couldn't believe the audacity of her request or the lengths she would go to obtain what she wanted. Surprisingly, her pursuit of my property seemed to fade away, leaving me with a sense of uneasy relief. However, little did I know that a storm was brewing on the horizon, one that would soon engulf me in its relentless fury. Late one evening, the sound of police sirens pierced the night air, coming to an abrupt halt in front of my home. Trembling, I stepped outside as instructed, only to witness officers excavating my yard. To my shock, they uncovered bags containing what appeared to be drugs. "These aren't mine," I stammered, my voice quivering. The police officer looked at me quizzically and asked, "Then whose are they?" Realizing the gravity of the situation, I pleaded with them to review the footage captured by my security cameras. Together, we watched the events of the previous night, unveiling the truth. Karen, under the cover of darkness, had illegally trespassed into my yard, planting the bags of drugs before anonymously tipping off the police. "Are you acquainted with this woman?" inquired the officer, his eyes fixed on the damning evidence. She is my neighbor. Her son desired my property, and when I refused, she grew furious. I believe this was her vindictive scheme to seek revenge, I replied, my voice heavy with exasperation. Determined to serve justice, the police swiftly apprehended Karen, who wailed and protested her innocence. She was charged with illegal possession of cocaine, trespassing, falsifying evidence, and lying to law enforcement. As the news of Karen's arrest spread throughout the community, a collective sigh of relief echoed among us. Finally, freedom and security returned to our lives. However, my heart couldn't help but ache for her son, now left to navigate life alone. Despite his mother's misguided influence, I recognized his potential and decided to extend a hand of friendship. We spent time together, occasionally joined by his friends, and I soon discovered a remarkable young man buried beneath the shadows of his mother's destructive behavior. The next one is a pro-revenge story. We are from the South, and when they first moved in, we used to shoot guns a lot just for fun and had little games like who had the better shot and stuff like that. Well, they were from Cali, so they had never shot or knew anything about guns, and it startled them. They asked us not to shoot during the evening if possible because they host dinner parties frequently for their clients, who are also from Cali. Last time they said they were all scared to death, so we stopped since they asked politely. We stopped around 3 p.m. before the evening. Then they said they were leaving town for a few months, and their son would be there, so if possible, they would like my dad to keep an eye on him and check up on him. Well, he partied a lot. My dad didn't say anything about it since he was 21, and it wasn't any of his business if he got drunk, smoked weed, etc., but he looked out for potentially harmful things like doing something stupid like drunk driving and stuff like that, and then the almost nightly rave started about 2 weeks in. At first we didn't care. It was their property, their business. But then it got louder as they built a party area about 50 feet away from our house on their property line. We asked nicely to keep it down a little since they came closer, and we had a baby, the second of my 4 little sisters, in the house who was losing a lot of sleep over this. He acted all smug and said, "It's the country, baby, no noise violations out here." He even said things like, "That's on you, bro, for having a kid, I crap you not, the little prick actually said something that stupid." Then he proceeded to say, "Your kid's health is not my problem, guy." Now, my dad is not a violent person at all. My dad is quite the pacifist and believes we can solve more with words than fists. But when you literally say, "I'm gonna ruin your child's health because I'm a jackass," and then act surprised when he starts moving towards you to beat your ass. Needless to say, he, like most idiots, didn't try to fight, but had his friends jump in front of him while he talked crap. My mom talked my dad down as he had his can opener ready to open a can of whoop-ass, and we went back. Well, my dad had enough, so he did what he always does when he would think. He lit a cigarette and sat outside and watched nature. Then, with a skin-crawling, gut-bubbling, devilish smile, he turned to me and said, "Son, go get our guns and bring out the targets. Also get the cheap ammo. We are going to burn through it." So being in a southern state, and just right outside city limits, we shot our guns with extra cheap ammo, all night long for about 3 weeks, 50 feet from them, at targets, and ignored them as they pleaded with us to stop. They called the sheriff so much that they started ignoring them and never sent another car. They even threatened them to stop calling because what we were doing was very legal. My dad said the last time they came out and told them we were within our rights to do this, he said, "It's the country, baby, no noise violations out here." And that's true. It's all community regulated. If our nice neighbors asked us to keep it down, we did. That's what you do. You be polite to your neighbor. But this ass clown was the opposite of neighborly, and I doubt he could even spell polite. So we continued until he fell into stage 2 of my satanic father's trickery. He told his parents, "Moo-ha-ha-ha-ha," is the mental sound my father made with his big joker's grin as he ran to get his house phone and call them to tell them that we were scaring them with our big bad shotguns and hunting rifles, while the damn party was still going on. And that was precisely the plan for my dad. You see, my dad played chess, not checkers. And just like a pawn, he moved and manipulated him into thinking it was his idea to call his parents. But it was my dad leading him in that direction all along. My dad, you see, he is a bit manipulative against people he doesn't like. And as a person who has done a combination of sales and hard labor, he knows how to read and play on the train of thought and emotion. He could manipulate them into doing whatever he wanted. Well, El Dumbo and his big-ass ears fell for it. You see, his parents didn't want him partying or drinking, and as Christians, they really didn't want him smoking weed. So when they talked to him, they heard the music and knew immediately that there was a party. My dad very loudly said, "Young man, I need to speak with your parents about this. I smell marijuana. You reek of alcohol, and these parties are getting out of hand." His parents heard him say that and ordered him to put my dad on the phone. He then told them everything, but made it sound like the son wouldn't give him the number to their hotel, before the mass popularity of everyone having cell phones, plus they were older people, like in their late 50s. Which was true. But he technically never asked further after the first time that he did. He then told them about the state of their and our property because of this. Anyway, they were back in only 7 hours via flight. They were coming back that day, and that was a part of the plan as well, and found the place trashed. They not only apologized, but offered us a vacation. They owned some hotel in LA. I don't remember which one, it was like a 3-star, and gave us a 2-week pass, free food, etc. It was fun. Didn't lose anything in LA, which is a very nice southern way of saying I would never live there, even if you paid me. But it was fun nonetheless. I heard they kicked him out too after that, since he refused to look for a job and refused to work for the family business. The best part is, since his parents were honest people, they told the dean of his college that they would no longer be paying his tuition. So if he doesn't get you the money, drop his ass. And that's what they did. His future ruined. Now working at the local McDonald's and living in a rundown part of town instead of his family's really nice 6-bedroom, 4-bath house. The next one is a petty revenge story. One evening I was at my local McDonald's, waiting in line to satisfy my cravings for some real junk food. It was a rather busy night, so the queues were longer than usual. I was standing about 1.5 feet behind the person in front, far enough to not invade their personal space, but close enough that I was obviously in the queue. This was before COVID, when social distancing was a thing. Some smug guy decided that the space in front of me had his name on it, so he squeezed himself into the gap, brushing up against both myself and the person in front. From his body language, I could almost hear him think, "What a sucker. Personal space is for losers who want to wait longer for their meal." I have about as much respect for queue jumpers as those who fart in lifts or demand free stuff because they're social influencers. Yep. So I started hatching my plan for petty revenge. Should I tap him on the shoulder and nicely ask him to move to the back? Berate him loudly to make everyone gawk at him? Put him in a rear naked choke and go all MMA on him? In the end, I decided that the best revenge was to do nothing. A few minutes later, he finally reached the front of the line and began dictating his order to the McDonald's crew member. The next one is an entitled parent story. I've, 21M, been in a surprisingly successful relationship for the past 1.5 years, ever since I moved to Europe to start my studies. Honestly, didn't think I'd hold it together this long, but hey, the girl actually likes me. Shocker. She's honestly perfect. Spiritually, she is a neckbeard, and I love her for it. My parents, not so much. Not because of her personality, they don't care about little things like that. She's European, and that's the problem. My parents belong to a minority in the Middle East. We believe in a lot of things, but the kicker is that if you marry outside your faith, you get excommunicated, disowned, not allowed back in the village, the whole shebang. And since there's so little of us, privileges are handed out so that finding the love of your life would still be possible. Dude down the street assaulted a child? It's fine, we'll just introduce my daughter to him. I'm sure he's a good man. Son fell in love with your niece? It's fine, matters of the heart are complicated. Your daughter fell in love with an Englishman after 8 years of living in England. Burn her at the stake. I feel like my mom genuinely thought that I was going to move back home to the village and meet someone there, like she and her siblings did, but surprise, surprise, I wasn't a fan of it. Especially since her siblings consist of her sister, who married a man 20 years younger than her brother, who married his cousin, and her other brother, who's on his 3rd marriage, with a woman who can only be described as a vanilla-flavored biscuit. Ever since I got into a relationship, my parents have been relatively supportive. I feel like my mom was just glad I'm not gay, since I wasn't like the other boys in high school, and my dad, in true dad fashion, was just happy I was getting some. 1.5 years later, they started showing their concern. My dad regularly sits me down for talks about our heritage, and my mom regularly jokes about setting me up with my future bride. Whenever I bring up something remotely serious about my girlfriend, they get visibly upset. I'm in a position right now where I possibly have to move cities. The fact that I want to stay where I am because I'm not exactly enthusiastic about leaving my girlfriend and the life I've built here caused them to short-circuit. All of a sudden, my poor academic performance wasn't due to my many mental health problems or COVID or just my lack of interest in the subject, it was the witch. The witch who seduced me and led me astray, because their golden boy is definitely incapable of making poor decisions himself. So, yeah, it got to a point where they're trying their hardest to force me to move cities just to get away from my girlfriend. They're arguing about it every phone call now, and if I just give it time, they're going to add the financial pressure on top of that. That's fun. I just really hope they mellow out soon. If not for me, for my siblings' sake. I'm the oldest, so I get the brunt of the generational friction, but I only hope it gets better when they get older. The next one is a choosing beggars story. I fly somewhat often for work, sometimes a few times a month. I'm usually heading to NYC and usually flying Delta. My company has a promotion with Delta where we can get status fairly quickly as a perk for joining the company, so I go from nothing to silver and finally gold pretty quickly. My flight home out of LGA gets delayed, mostly because every flight leaving LGA gets delayed. So I hear the announcement that they're likely not going to have a crew to man the flight until 9 p.m. It's about 6, so I head off to find some crappy airport food. Just as my food is arriving, I catch an announcement for final boarding for my flight. Great. I abandon my table, paid for dinner, hadn't received it yet, and rush off to the gate. Turns out I'm not the only one who was confused, but they get us on a bus to take us out to the plane. With my status, I often get free upgrades, which is cool as hell. And on this flight, I got what I refer to as first ER class, the little single seat at the very front of first class, good ol' 1A. So I board, and there's a woman in my seat, glass of wine in hand, me. I think you're in my seat, my boarding pass says 1A. Lady, whoops, you weren't here, you can have my seat. I knew how this was going to go. Me, no worries, which of the other first class seats is yours? Lady, oh, it's not. I was in 22B. So on these little regional jets, 22B is usually in the aisle and in the very back, right next to the restroom. Me, okay, I'm gonna want my seat back then. Lady, I'm already buckled in, it's a short flight, be a dear. She doesn't know I got the upgrade for free, and that's beside the point. Me, sorry, no, I'd like my seat. Lady, don't be annoying, or something like that, I can't remember. I'm not moving. Me, just take the free drink and head back to your seat. You're holding up everyone else boarding. Lady, just take the seat in the back. You're holding up everyone else boarding, I tell the flight attendant. He just sighs like he deals with this crap all the time, and then tells her to move to her assigned seat or they'll have to remove her from the plane. So she moves while grumbling the whole time, and I settle in and have a vodka cran. I see this often enough with other people being picky about seats that aren't theirs, but it's a first for me personally. The next one is a choosing beggars story. A few years back, I was selling a cell phone on good old CL. I had tons of hits, but Karen came in first and said she'd come to me immediately. I told her to come on down to my work. At the time, I was in my own little trailer as the place I was at was remodeling, and it was the slow season. My final message to anyone buying from me is a confirmation of the price. Just so we're clear, the price is $400 and it comes with X, Y, and Z. No response. Spidey senses start tingling. About an hour later, Karen walks in. Karen, I'm here for the phone. I had the phone charging on my desk, so it was ready for inspection. The phone was flawless. Karen picks it up and looks at it, scratching at non-existent stuff, giving that little sniff of disapproval. Then she says, "It's a little rougher than I thought." Me, "Nah, it's been fully encased in VisaShield from the minute it was taken out of its box. There's not a scratch on there." Karen, "Well, it's not worth $400. Me, "That's the price, take it or leave it." Karen, "I only brought $250 with me. You take it or leave it." I had already taken the phone back after her inspection, so at this point I put it in my desk drawer. Me, "Leave it is. Have a nice day." Karen, "Excuse me, I drove almost 2 hours to get here and I took time off work to pick this up." Me, "That's super neat. It's still for sale at $400. If you need to pick up more cash, just about every bank you can think of is within a few miles." Karen, I want to speak to your manager right now. Me. Sure thing, 2 trailers over, door on the right. Have fun. At the time, I was selling insurance out of a dealership, and a good friend of mine was the desk manager, my boss. As she stormed out, I messaged my friend boss about the crazy lady coming his way. A few minutes later, my desk phone rings from my boss. Boss, Minya, did you refuse to sell your phone to this lady? Me. Yep, she wouldn't pay the agreed upon price. Boss. Are you willing to negotiate the price? Me. Nope. I already have other offers for the full price. Boss. Ma'am, we appreciate your time, but the price is firm at $450. Karen in the background. What? He said $400? Boss. And you only brought $250. Sounds like you're short either way. Look, I can work a deal out for you here. If you pay me $200, I'll get him to sell you the phone for $250. I could almost hear gears turning before she said, "Duck you," and left, slamming the door. Message from boss. Don't sell crap that isn't insurance at the dealership, retard. The next one is an entitled parent story. Last night, I decided to let my parents know that I am going out of state with my partner of 3 years for 4 days. My parents were furious. My dad called me cheap and easy to get, while my mom called me a whore who had no respect for myself. I ended up walking out of that conversation to lock myself in my room and cry. After my brother attempted to defend me, my mom texted me to come into her room. I thought she would apologize and try to see things from my perspective, but it turned into a whole discussion about how she failed God because I became someone she did not envision. She said she was going to go to hell because she did not mold me into a specific person. Eventually, she finally said that the reason she doesn't think I should go with my partner is because a man and woman should not go anywhere alone if they are not married. She eventually got the idea that I am having premarital sex, and she said I am selfish for not considering her feelings. She said I should think of her feelings every time I choose to have sex. I am honestly bewildered at this point. Keep in mind I am 24. I ended up walking out again. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.